You are listening to Veloccino. The best stories have not yet been ridden. Play a fly on the wall during light-hearted conversations with fascinating people from all aspects of the cycling universe. Enjoy the ride with your hosts, Gemma and Niels.
Hello and welcome to the Veloccino podcast where the best stories have not yet been written. Today I'm here with Gemma. Gemma, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, Niels. This is my first podcast co-hosting with you.
To be honest, I wanted Mike, but Mike couldn't today.
But it wasn't available.
Yeah. So Gemma.
If that is actually listeners, that's entirely true.
Well, no. Well, we might cut that out. Anyways, how's it going? Have you cycled a lot or?
I did. I cycled just before we came on today, actually. I just did an easy ride. Easy ride, had dinner.
Oh, nice. Like I didn't ride for the whole week again. Although our motivation podcast the other week helped me a bit. I went out twice since, which is really good. I hope I will get my motivation back. When it comes to a topic for this show today, I was actually thinking about habits because a couple of months ago we spoke to Dr. Ian Walker, who is has a doctor in psychology of behavioral change, and he said that this lockdown or this COVID-19 time is actually a massive window of opportunity. So I was asking some friends of ours if there was anything specific that they have changed, that they are doing differently now, or that they just want to explore. And I was really surprised that a lot of my friends actually came back with, hey, I'm trying veganism. And I was like, whoa, what? Like, this is like really like almost turning your life upside down, right? Because there's so many things you have to consider, so many things you have to look out for. And I believe it also might have some impact on your body. And if you're a cyclist, also on your performance. Have you ever thought about stuff like that?
I'm probably the total opposite, Niels, actually, if you've
Antichrist.
ever seen me. I've just had dinner and I had a chicken and pate, all the meats.
Oh, so you're basically completely the opposite.
Completely the opposite. So it does interest me. I fully admit I've not gone anywhere near even attempting to be a vegan at all. Yeah. And I know there's lots of different reasons why people do it. So I think that's kind of interesting as well. And I know you were talking about your friends, and I think it's difficult, or might be difficult if you're an athlete, to find, to source the food and to really work that around your training. So I would be interested in finding out more about that, I guess.
Definitely, because for me, to the listeners, they might not know, but I have quite a lot of intolerances versus certain food. Like I'm intolerant towards dairy, so I see already, like for me, sometimes sourcing the right milk alternative or substitute is really, really difficult. So yeah, well, you don't know anything about veganism. I don't know anything about veganism. Let's get somebody on the line who actually knows a bit or two about it. Welcome, Olly Moors.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah, great, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Yeah, pretty good. Just chilling at the moment. Yeah, excited to be talking to you guys, really.
Thank you
I'm
so much for
slightly
joining
concerned already that Olly may have heard what I had for dinner.
I did, but,
and we may have set off on the wrong foot. Sorry about that, Olly.
No prejudgment here. Yeah,
it's because Olly, you are vegan for the animals, right? It's not that you were necessarily like most of the people that I know. They have seen like a certain documentary on Netflix and they thought, oh, I just give it a crack as well. But as far as I understand, you are actually vegan because of the animals.
Yeah, that's pretty much what fired me towards being vegan. And it's been odd, kind of the journey. It's been, 1 minute it's all for the animals, and then the next minute I'm doing loads of research on health benefits, and then in my head I'm thinking, oh, it's all for health benefits, and then I'm thinking, oh, for the environment it's really good. And I think as my life goes on now, it kind of ebbs and flows between kind of difference of kind of why I do it, but the predominant reason is for the animals.
That's super interesting because you mentioned the environment. Actually, the first time where I was really exposed to veganism, where I thought, oh, maybe I should also give it a crack, was when I watched Cowspiracy a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
and that was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's a good documentary.
Yeah, the reason why I didn't do it, then it's like, as I mentioned earlier, like I have intolerances and also like sensitivities towards certain food. So there's a lot of vegetables actually that I can't eat. So there's like a massive limitation for me there. Otherwise, I most probably would have given it a crack already. But maybe after our conversation today, I might give another crack.
Well, we'll see.
To those of you who don't know Olly, I just want to give you a bit of a rundown. Olly, correct me if I'm wrong. So as far as I know, so you are a road and a track cyclist with your special discipline is a Durney racing, and you currently race for the UCI Continental team Ribble Weldtite.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's so my road team is Ribble Weldtite, and yeah, on the track, kind of my younger years. Well, when I say younger years, I'm 24 now, but I spent a lot of time on the track. And now kind of turned my focus predominantly onto the road. And now, I'm lucky enough to be part of Ribble Weldtite. So yeah, it's good stuff.
That's really good. It's this is a little bit off topic now, but just because you mentioned it, and I never really understood it. So here's another question that I didn't prepare actually. But you mentioned you track before and you focus more on road.
Yeah.
How does a transition like this happen? Is it just from one day to the other that you think like, oh, actually I enjoy more road, or is it that you think road gives me a little bit more opportunities in the future, or is this like you realize actually track is not my thing? I just achieved everything there and I just want to crack on? Or
I think as you grow up and you're young, you have an open mind to everything. And when you're 16, 17, you can kind of think you can tackle anything, and time is on your side. And I'd be a track rider, I'll be a road rider, I'll be a road sprinter, I'll be a mountain climber, I'll be a track sprinter, I'll do everything. But sadly, as you get older, you get stronger at one thing and not so good at the other, and there's other athletes around you that almost push you out of the top. And especially in track racing, the UK and GB have such a strong track prominence in the world. So to be in that squad of 4 or 5 riders that are going to go to Rio and compete, it's tough. So if I was to put all my eggs in one basket and go for the track and not be on the GB setup, it's pretty non-existent career. Like maybe the 6 days and stuff, but again, to really push into the 6 days, you need to have a small name on the road, because obviously the 6 days only happen in the winter. So I just got to be real and realistic. I still love the track, but on the road there are slightly more opportunities. So yeah,
that's really good. It's really good to know. And also, I think it has taken you to places, right? Like, as far as I know, you were racing for an American team. You were racing for a Belgian team.
Yeah. I was with. I've lived in Belgium now. I lived in Belgium pretty much from February this year until lockdown. Most of this year, July. But yeah, it's 2017, 2018, 2019, full seasons in Belgium. 2016, I was in America with an American Continental team, Estellas Pro Cycling. So yeah, it's fair to say I've kind of traveled around racing quite a lot in different countries, different cultures. Kind of, when you're young, 18, 19, 20, racing in those different cultures, it's, you learn a lot. And it's been a good time. So yeah, it's been good.
This is super
quite
cool.
Young, actually, Olly, to not necessarily to start cycling for a pro team. We know now, but as a normal human being, fairly young to be traveling and living elsewhere. In America, in Belgium. So, hats off to you. I don't know if there was any concerns that you had initially. Or were you just super young and thought, this is great, I'm going to go to America?
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough when I went to America. The year before that, I was a first year under 23 and I was still at college. So, I'm currently studying an open uni degree, kind of just on the side of my cycling. But at school, I was never academically that strong. But I always made a promise to myself, got to finish college, got to get my GCSEs, got to get that stuff done. And then, college finished and I was working part-time in a bike shop, Evans Cycles in Crawley. And
I may have been there a few times.
Oh, really? Yeah.
How was the service?
What? Probably quite. I don't know.
There's this one guy. Olly.
Yeah, one guy, Olly, he's a bit of an idiot. Yeah. But I, so I was working there, and then I got a really nice opportunity actually through my coach, Alan Denman. He used to coach a rider, Matt Green, who kind of, took me under his wing and helped me, took me over to America and joined the team with him, Estelis in America. And so I was over there, and I was lucky enough to actually live with a family with another British rider, Dan Gardner. And we lived with a guy called Jake Sittler, and Jake's family took us under their wing and just looked after us like their children really. And I wouldn't say I had an easy go at it, but it was certainly a lot easier having kind of a parental duo of Jake's parents kind of looking after us and stuff. So when I was young, it was quite a smooth transition really. So
Sounds so cool. And where about in the US was it?
So I was actually living, I actually lived kind of all over in America. So I was initially, my main base was Pennsylvania, in a town called Marietta, which is probably about an hour from Philadelphia. But I spent 3 months living with my director sportif in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, and his family there. Then I lived with Matt Green himself. I broke my collarbone in May in 2016 in a crit. And then stayed with Matt's wife now, but girlfriend at the time's family. I was kind of just hopping around America really, in between racing and breaking my collarbone. So it was really good actually.
Super cool. Not the collarbone one, but everything else. And then Belgium. How did this happen? This is I think I've never been a racer, but I assume that most racers in Europe want to either race in Holland or in Belgium at some point, right? To get international exposure. Yeah,
for sure. You only need to look into the top pros in the world. The majority of them are Belgian. You've got Wout van Aert now dominating, not only in time trials, but you can climb phenomenally well, sprint well. You got Remco Evenepoel. And then obviously the likes of Philippe Gilbert, Greg Van Avermaet, these guys that, they come from the heart of Flanders. And that's where I live. So from a young age, when I was a junior, again, my coach, who still coaches me now, Alan Denman, took me out when I was young on a trip. And literally since then, it's kind of always been in my heart. I literally spent my first year in 2017 there. And Dan, who I was on a team with in America, who's actually my best friend now, and been best friends for a long time. He signed for a team called Ampost Chain Reaction, with the director sportif of Sean Kelly, and Sean Kelly's a legend of the sport. So Dan signed with Ampost, and gave a contact to Pascal de Weerd, who was the director of Dan's old team, which was Baguet Dorito. I was lucky enough in 2017 they took me on, it was a bit of a change up from American crit racing and American races to being thrown into Belgian races. I had a hard 2017 season, but then I learned so much, and 2018 2019 were kind of my two best seasons that I've had as a cyclist. It just hardens you up. If you can live there and you can perform there and you can thrive there and get results there, I think you can do it anywhere really. And it's tough being a foreigner there because there's so many ins and outs of the racing. It's not just simple as a lot of maybe the British races. It's a bit more kind of racing and that's it. It's just bog standard, the first across the line wins. But in Belgium there's so much more to it. There's mind games, there's different riders know each other, there's all sorts of different elements and people trying to mess over someone else. And so as a young rider learning about that, it definitely makes you just pick up racing a bit quicker than you would potentially doing just your local crits as a 19-year-old in the UK. So
this is super cool. I spoke to a friend today about stuff like that. We were talking about intercultural competency.
Yes.
How few people actually understand how other cultures function or work. Yeah, exactly. And I think cycling aside, whatever you have learned in these couple of years will definitely take you somewhere. at some point in your life.
Hopefully.
And this is really, really good. So yeah. Oh, well done.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I haven't learned. I can pick up. So the Belgian in Belgium they speak, or in Flanders they speak Flemish, which is a dialect of Dutch. So when I was young, in 2017, I was a lot younger and a bit more naive, and I was like, I'm gonna, try and learn Flemish. It's a really unique language, and you spend hours on Duolingo trying to learn. You go to your first race of the season in 2017 in March, and it's freezing cold. You go up to your director sportif, and you're like, you rattle off your fresh new Duolingo Flemish that you've learned, and they literally stare at you, and they're like, and then you say whatever you want to say in Flemish, and they just look at you and reply in English, and it's like, why did you? Work. Yeah, all that hard work over the winter for absolutely nothing, because the Belgians and in Dutch in Holland, and Niels is probably the same in Germany. That on the TV they watch a lot of English and American TV shows, so all of them speak very, very good English. So especially in Belgium, the young guys who I spend a lot of time with in the team, they speak pretty much fluent English, and they want to practice it because they watch Netflix all the time, and they want to practice their English because it's like, I've been watching Netflix, I can practice my cool English and American accent on you. Whereas for me, I try and learn the Flemish and I can't get a word in because they just want to speak English. So it's a bit pointless, really. So
you tried, you give it a good go.
I did, yeah. Well, yeah, I gave it a crack for about 2 months, and then after that, I was like, well, I'll just speak English.
Well, but for British business life, most probably you can just put on your CV like fluent in Flemish, and everybody will believe it.
Yeah, true. Half fluent.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really cool. There's this one thing that I read about more over the last couple of weeks, because I don't know, most probably you also have seen, but Chloe Dygert as an example, she was racing her whole career so far in the US, and she's now making the move actually to rougher SRAM, to Europe. And besides all the other controversies that I don't want to necessarily talk about now, but point that was picked up quite a lot is that the racing in the US is so much different than in Europe, and you pointed that out already. There's a completely different.
Yeah, well, I think Chloe, for example, I think if she's able to perform like last year at Harrogate in the World's Road Race, I don't, the way she performed there against some of the, the best in the world, I don't think she'll have a problem. She's a phenomenal athlete. She's got outrageously good power numbers and a very good racing head. So for a rider like her, she'll just slot straight in. I can't see it being a problem. But for the normal folk, I think. It's a huge change. In America, it's a lot more controlled. The racing, it's almost like a world tour vibe to the racing in the road races. So like a breakaway will go, a few teams will get together and try and bring it back and work together. And then the last kind of 20-30 kilometers is a bit full gas. Whereas in Belgium, from the gun, it's full gas and no one. There's no prisoners. You if you're there, you're there, and if you're not, you're not. And so I think there is definitely a difference. But the likes of Chloe Dygert, I can't see her having any problems at all.
Yeah, I read somewhere racing in the US is like a staged wrestling fight. If you come to Belgium, it's more like Fight Club.
Oh, that's so true. That's a very, very actually a very good comparison. It's almost like those underground. Underground fight club fights where like it's just bashing each other until one of them cracks. That is Belgian racing in a nutshell, I think.
That's so cool. On that note, to our listeners, if you want to buy veloccino soap, we have them in our shop. Anyways, no, it's a joke. So Olly, we start the conversation off with we want to find a bit more out about veganism, and I don't know. What's the right term to say, like to use? Like veganism sounds almost like you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, so I mean, for me, I personally think there's two definitions. So like you were discussing earlier at the beginning of the podcast, people that try, they're trying out a new diet. So people will say, oh, I'm doing this new vegan diet. I'm going vegan, and it's like. for you think, shit, oh man, that's what they're doing. The label vegan is the diet, but in a vegan's eyes, like in my eyes, you're not. That person he's going plant-based. He's trying a plant-based way of living.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a vegan, and it's not just my diet. I stay true to my morals and my ethics, stay consistent across the board. So I believe one thing, whereas some other people are plant-based, and then one minute they're eating only plants and no animal products, and then the next minute they're 2 months later they're like, oh yeah, I tried it, being a vegan wasn't for me. And it's like, no, if you're a true vegan from the word get-go, you don't go back. So it's almost like, once you truly understand the philosophy around it, it's hard to go back, because you believe in it so much that you know what's wrong and right in your own head. If that makes sense, without sounding too kind of aggressive in that sense. But yeah, I would say like there's a difference. So being plant-based and being vegan is two different things. Yeah, that's kind of what I'd say. So I would say like being a vegan and so like, yeah, you might have friends that are trying it. So they're plant-based. They're going on a plant-based diet. All of their nutrients comes from plants, no animal products. Whereas if you're a vegan, it's like all your nutrients are coming from plants, but then you're also maintaining those values behind it and your reasoning for it.
That's super cool. And when did you switch? Like, switch means I just assume that at some point you were not a vegan. So
yeah, for sure.
Did it change then, or
yeah, I did switch. So yeah, it's probably been over a year now that I've been like fully just all about the vegan life. I was actually kind of vegetarian most of 2019, and it's weird. It was never really for any reason, only that my mum, for as long as I can remember, has actually been very neurotic about meat and like kind of the cleanliness of meat. And like when she used to cook things, she would literally like make us like evacuate the kitchen and like disinfect everything after cooking, because like she was paranoid about it, like just like getting like salmonella and food poisoning and like
everybody down, I get the steak out, everybody down.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was just thinking she was preparing really well for COVID.
Exactly. Well, she also prepares quite well for that as well. She's a bit COVID crazy, but yeah. And then I guess it stuck with me, and like I've always kind of had that. And then 2019, I was racing in Belgium, and I was trying to live a very cheap existence and cheap lifestyle. So I was eating a lot of rice, a lot of beans, a lot of lentils, a lot of vegetables, lots of fruit. And yeah, kind of came back from Belgium. And weirdly enough, as you know, my girlfriend very well, Anna Henderson, when we went on our first date last year, some October time, and for some weird reason, I had been eating like all pretty much vegetarian all of last year. And then on that date, we went to a Mexican restaurant, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to be like weird here. I don't want to come across that I'm some weirdo on this first date, and I'll just order a chicken burrito. So I ate that, and I was like, why am I eating this? Like, but then I didn't really have any reasoning behind not eating it, if that makes sense. I was like, I'm eating it, but I feel bad, but I don't know why I feel bad. So I ate it anyway, and like didn't really think anything of it. And then I went to Australia like 2 weeks after that, and I was in Australia for a month, and had a lot of time on my hands. I was training full time there, staying with my family, staying with some family, and I was just like, I don't know how I came across it on YouTube. I just came across this video called Dominion, and it was a 2-hour documentary on animal welfare. And when I used to go into a supermarket, whatever supermarket I went into, as a consumer buying products, meat products, you don't look at the product and look at it and pick it up, and your instant reaction is, this used to be an animal that used to feel things, that used to be a mother or a father, or used to want to live, used to smell things, used to love, used to hear, used to listen and used to feel things, you don't. You look at it and you think, oh, this will go really well in my stir fry, and you just chuck it in your trolley and walk away. And I watched this 2 hours of kind of exposing everything that I thought was how the world worked. And I was like, I watched it, and literally from then on, I was like, that's it, I'm done. I was like, I'm completely done. I'm never doing this again. I'm not taking part in it. And it was literally within 2 hours, I went from like not even knowing what was like how things worked in the animal agriculture industry to literally being like, I'm done. And the next day, from that day onwards, I'd just done more and more research, digging deeper, looking into it. And to this day, every single day, I spend probably 2 hours a day still, every day, just researching more and more and more, looking into it, looking up to date things. And yeah, it just opened my eyes, and I just thought, I can't keep doing this, if that makes sense. So yeah, and then I guess that went from like the animal side to then looking more into the health side. And I picked up a book actually by Michael Greger, who's a very, very famous plant-based physician, doctor in America, who's published a book called How Not to Die, which, you know, for any of the listeners here interested in a plant-based or vegan diet that's new to it, I would definitely recommend that book, because it's literally a Bible of kind of all the foods that, you know, we think we need. And yeah, I read that front to cover, back and forth as much as I could. I've read it like 6 times, then read another book called The China Study back like 4 times now. So yeah, then the health came in. And yeah, it's kind of just went from there really. And here I am now.
Super interesting. It's I just want to go like a couple of steps back. So so you had your first date with Anna, where you basically you ate chicken.
Yeah.
Then you went to Australia. You made the decision. Okay, I'm a vegan now.
Yeah.
Then you came back from Australia, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I assume you had your second date. What did you eat?
Well, lucky for me, my sister's vegan. My younger sister Izzy, she's vegan, and she has been vegan. She's been vegetarian most of her life, actually. She's been vegan for years, and her boyfriend Lawrence is also vegan. And for me, it was so easy, because I just literally went home, and my mum, you know, cooks my sister vegan food, and you know, she's really cool with my sister and her boyfriend. So it was, for me, it was almost just like fine. I just slotted straight back in. So I went back. And obviously, like after that date in Australia, like, I mean, Anna will be the first person to tell you, like, I do just come out with some ludicrous theories a lot of the time with things. And I was like, you know, I explained to her that this is what I'm doing and stuff. She was like, you know, at first she was kind of, oh, you know, good for you, that's cool. And yeah, kind of after that, yeah, she was very accepting actually. Yeah, so yeah, it kind of went okay.
That's really good. But Anna is not a vegan or vegetarian, right? I guess,
no, it's funny. So she, obviously, spending time with me, I'm not one of those people, you know, if you ask me, like you are on this podcast, you ask me my reasonings behind doing what I'm doing, I'll give you a straight answer and like my views about it. But then that's it. Like after you ask me, I leave it alone. So like, if I've lived with housemates and stuff who eat meat, I'm not the sort of person to be like, every time they whip a chicken breast out, I'm not like, oh, you know, like I'm not about that. So like, you know, I just literally just went about my day with Anna. And I think she, over time, you know, she asks questions, she's a bit more inquisitive and wants to learn a bit more. And you know, you explain it as it naturally feels, you know, you don't, you know, put it on her. But yeah, no, like to this day now, she's pretty much there. I'd say she's 99% plant-based now, and has been, yeah, for a few months now. And I'd say, yeah, she's thriving. You know, it's definitely a new way of living. So yeah,
super good. I really enjoy your approach there, because I'm a firm believer of education over confrontation.
Yes.
Right. So, Sometimes there are ways, obviously, you have to confront people in order
Absolutely.
to get to a point. But I think trying to educate most of the time has a better long-term effect. So
for sure.
It's really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I didn't know that about Anna. Really, really, really interesting. It's a good thing. And so during everything that I heard of, like there were like a couple of questions, and I think that might be the transition into our next point, because I was wondering, and I mentioned it in the beginning of the podcast, if it might have any effects on or impacts on your performance. And Gemma mentioned also that this is something that is really interesting to her in terms of, and I don't know if I have the facts or the points right here, but I noted down earlier that you said 2017, 2018 was actually your best time in your career, or you were very happy with the performance?
2018, 2019.
Yeah, but when you mentioned then that you started becoming a vegetarian and then also going totally vegan in 2019, do you think this has any impact on that, or other factors? I don't know. Like, I think
obviously through that you're learning more through the racing, so results will get better. You're getting it, at that young age. No matter what diet you're eating, really, as a young rider, you're quite receptive and you're a bit like a sponge. No matter what you throw at them, they'll learn, they'll adapt. Whatever training stimulus you give a young athlete, they'll come along at a fairly good build rate. So I was kind of in that bracket of, a natural progression anyway. So, I'm 24 now. And I feel at that point, my diet definitely could have been tuned up and sharpened up a lot more. And it almost, because I was quite lean, quite thin and athletic, it was almost a joke to think, what is good nutrition? Why does it matter? Look at me, I'm fine, I can get away with it. But there's so much more to that, and there's so much more behind it. And that's what has taken me to a new level of understanding and learning is through eating all the good plants, really.
All the good plants. Is there, when you just say eating all the good plants, like obviously as a cyclist, race like in various places, what would you do if you like enter a tour, or like you have to race for like a training camp in an area that might be less developed? And as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of our conversation here, I sometimes struggle just to find like a normal milk replacement, oat milk or almond milk. What would you do in a situation like this?
That's a good question, and I've actually experienced this already. In February, we did the tour of Saudi Arabia, and we were over in Saudi, and luckily, athletes are quite odd people anyway, and they do have, regardless of being a vegan or being on a plant-based diet, they do have quite odd, nutritional needs. So, you turn up to the buffet and there are, abundance of different milks and things like that. So I think racing at that sort of level, you'll always be catered towards kind of a minimal of a vegetarian like eating, which obviously in vegetarian food they do use a lot of cheese and eggs, which is fine. But in Saudi, it's funny because in February I was eating so much differently as a vegan in February when I first started to what I'm eating now. So back in February, even on training camp in March with the team, I was thinking, I've really got to pinpoint that whole myth of, protein. It's all about the protein. And for ages, that was my focus. I was always thinking, it's the protein. I've got to get the kidney beans, and I've got to get the chickpeas in, I've got to get the quinoas in, I've got to get the tofu, and I've got to get the vegan protein bars, and I've got to get it in. And then when I went to Belgium in July, I don't know if you're familiar with a YouTuber, fairly controversial YouTuber, whether you like him or not, called Durianrider. He's an Australian YouTuber.
Yeah. I never followed him,
No.
but I'm aware that there was like a lot of controversy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So he, a lot of people don't like him because he just talks the straight truth and calls people out and calls, if he sees something that's not what he thinks is real, he'll call it out. But his nutrition advice is spot on. And in July, I was in Belgium and I wasn't racing, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to fully adopt everything he's saying and try it. I'm just going to try this and see what happens. So he's very much high carbohydrate, very low fat, added sugar into your diet, lots of fruit, lots of starches, lots of rice, lots of kind of just pure high carb, low fat foods. So it would get to a point where I'd be like, in the morning, I'd have a big smoothie with like near 100 grams of brown sugar in there. Like I just bang 4 bananas, a load of brown sugar, just blitz it up, have that, and go out training for 4 or 5 hours. Come home, have another one. Yeah, no, and that's what, as humans, when you say, oh, that sounds pretty nice, and you taste it, it's like, geez, this is really good. And it's like, as humans, our brains run on glucose. When you only need to Google, it's very simple Google, what does your brain run on? And you hit search, glucose. What does every cell in the human body run on? You hit search, glucose. Where does glucose derive from? Okay, so carbohydrates. And then you break down what is, simple, even simple refined sugar. Like people have a bad stigma that simple white sugar is, the death food, and that's the cause of chronic disease and obesity. And in reality, people say, oh, I got thin from cutting out the sugar in my diet, and it's like, no, you lost weight because you're cutting donuts out, you're cutting cookies out, you're cutting all the sugary stuff out that are packed with fat and butter and all the fat in there. So they think that it's the sugar that they're cutting out that makes them thinner, when in reality, it's actually the fat that they're cutting out. So I tried this new way. So I was jamming in the carbs. I was eating, 800 grams of carbohydrates a day. I was slamming. I was training hard. So then I bought a diabetic blood glucose kind of finger prick tester. So it basically just measures your blood glucose levels in your blood. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this properly. So I recorded 5 times a day, so before a meal and after a meal, my blood glucose before and after, and then obviously my fasted. So I did this for I did this for months. I'm still doing it now because it's so good. And people will be like, oh, be careful, you might turn diabetic. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll keep doing this, and when I do turn diabetic, I'll let you know. So I kept doing it, and even now I occasionally just check my fasted blood glucose levels, and they are the best. They're incredible. They're the best they've been. I've had blood tests through the team, and the doctor saying, geez, like your insulin sensitivity and everything is incredible. And it's like, we're told by all these medical experts that, sugar is the cause of diabetes, when, I've kind of done 6 months of heavy carbohydrate and sugar intake. And, people say, oh, that's short, that's a very short period of time, but you can develop type 2 diabetes within months of a different diet change. And I'm 6 months down the line, and you only need to ask Anna how much carbohydrates and sugar I eat, and she's still a bit shocked at how much I do consume, really. So, yeah.
What does a typical day look like food-wise for you? And I know we're talking about training here, but yeah, even if just a normal training day, or even a race if you want to. Yeah. But what does it actually look like for you? Yeah,
so it's probably pretty similar to you as a bike rider. I mean, I don't know if you like porridge or not, but I wake up. And
I have an egg in mine though.
Oh.
Well, so just to Ollie, to let you know. No, actually you can't ever eat, or you won't even eat this, but Gemma eats porridge with egg.
Yeah,
no, I used to do that. So I used to also do that. So it's okay, because I've also done that.
But yes, anyway, back to
so I'll have like 100 grams of just pour out 100 grams of oats, some soy milk in there, chuck in a bit of water as well, then like 100 grams of frozen berries, microwave that up, and then add maybe some chia seeds, some flax seeds, and then 75 to 100 grams of any sugar that I have, like a big pile of sugar, like just pile it on there, mix it up and just slam it down. Let's wait for an hour or two for that to go down, go out training. And then in my bottles, I have a really high carb energy mix, which is about 100 grams of carbs in each bottle. So when I'm out training, I probably go through, 90 grams of carbs an hour. So then get home again, we'll have probably pure white rice, vegetables, maybe some tofu, because, tofu is quite nice. I like it. And then if I'm still a bit peckish after lunch, some bread with jam or a smoothie with sugar, lots of fruit in there. And then that kind of ties me over to dinner, really. It's one thing I've found with staying on top of the carbohydrates is I don't snack. I eat my big meals and I don't really snack. I don't feel hungry because I'm so carbed up that you come to dinner and it's like, oh, great, another kind of feast of food and carbohydrates that I get to eat. Then for dinner, it's pastas, it's starches, it's potatoes, it's vegetables, it's, all the good stuff really, even a pizza, make a quick pizza with, if I'm feeling in the off season, chuck some vegan cheese on there or some veg, and just kind of keeping up majority of carbohydrates really, which everyone really likes. If you were to say, baked potatoes, most people like baked potatoes, most people like, pizza, most people like pancakes, most people like, fruit, most people like pasta, all those different types of food they love, or curries. It's just those sorts of foods really.
Do you think there's an element in there, Ollie? I know we're talking to you as a cyclist, and obviously you're doing a lot of training, and unfortunately we don't have Ollie the cyclist vegan versus Ollie the not cyclist vegan. So I know we don't know the answer to this, but I guess in the research you've done and things, do you think that, for instance, that plan that day to day that you just talked to us might look different for someone who wasn't a cyclist, for instance? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that really.
Well, that's a really good question actually, because there's a really, really good guy called Dr. John Mcdougall, and he's an American physicianist, and he's got nothing to do with athletes. He's not got an athletic background. He's not got an interest in athletes. He is all about the starch diet. So he's very much, potatoes, rice, kind of any starches, lots of fruit, lots of fruit juices, those sorts of things, the carbohydrates. And back in the 1940, a guy called Richard Kempner actually did a very long-term study on people with chronic disease and type 2 diabetes and obesity and heart disease. And they were actually in like not a psych ward, but like a hospital where they treat these conditions. And Kempner basically fed them a predominantly white rice diet. So it was white rice, fruit juices, and added sugar. So it was 90% carbohydrates, 5% protein, and 5% fat. But the problem with white rice is people don't realize, but per 100 grams is actually 7 to 8 grams of protein in 100 grams of white rice. So Kempner, to bring the protein down, had to increase the white sugar because it kind of overrode that 5% protein in the diet. And he actually reversed, I think he had like a 98% success rate with reversing type 2 diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. Yet normal people, people I follow in kind of the high carb vegan movement, who aren't athletes, who live that lifestyle of just, making sure they're getting their sugars in, staying hydrated, lots of fluids, lots of water, and also staying off the stimulants, off the coffee as well. It helps a lot as well for me, I found. I cut coffee out. I used to be literally obsessed with coffee. I loved coffee.
There's already a fear in me then. I'm thinking,
I cut that out. It took a while, and I was like, oh man, I'm just gonna go for it. And again, that was through Durianrider. He's very big on just no stims, no stimulants. So I cut that out, and for about a month it was quite tough. But caffeine masks fatigue. So as an athlete, you want to know your body inside out, and I cut that out, increase the carbohydrates, and yeah, I don't think I'll go back to drinking coffee, if I'm honest. Like I'm so energized through making sure that I'm getting what my body needs. My brain needs the glucose, and my cells in my body needs that glucose. Yeah, it definitely has helped. So yeah, as like you were going back to your point on normal people, I think obviously their appetite will be dependent. But if I was to say, right, it's time for you to here's a bowl of white rice, 250 grams of white rice, eat it, you will get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm done. I cannot eat anymore. Like, I'm so full. Like, I'm done. And that's a receptor that we have, that we can be like, okay, I can't eat any more white rice anymore. I'm done. Whereas with fat and protein, we don't have those receptors in our tongues to A, taste it, but B, signal to our brains that we're done. So I used to be able to sit there and just, if my dad brought out a cheese board after dinner, I could just sit there and cut cheese off for ages, because it's like you don't really think about it, and you just kind of eat it. Whereas my dad's like, okay, we're bringing more white rice out, we're bringing more potatoes. You're like, oh god, I can't eat anymore, I'm full, I'm done. So yeah, you do naturally find that balance. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say.
What would you say were probably the most difficult things for you then, that either practically or maybe physically or mentally trying to once, I guess you made the decision, so that's one element of it that's taken away, the decision's made, but all those other elements that you might have found tough and tricky?
Yeah, I think definitely the hard things is like not getting through to people, but like when people see what I do and see like how I eat, or like sometimes it is hard, because it's like I'm in society, it's not deemed as normal, if that makes sense. It's like, that's not a normal way of doing things. But then if they spent a week with me, or even a month with me, and followed how I lived and adopted that, I can guarantee, I could tell you right now that if they did what I did, they would come out of that month feeling the best they'd felt, the most energized. They'll sleep the best, they'll exercise the best, as long as they're keeping all of their nutrients up to scratch. It probably sounds like I just eat bowls of white sugar, which isn't true. You got to make sure you got that base of nutrients, all your vegetables and fruits and all that stuff, before you then add, make sure fiber's in there, make sure the proteins are in there. But yeah, I'm definitely more focused on the sugars. So yeah, I would definitely say that's probably the hardest part sometimes, is when people come at me and try and challenge it. And it's, I always use this assumption. It's like, people, it's very easy for people to be like, to say like, what you're doing doesn't work. It's not right. People say you can't be a vegan cyclist. And I'm like, okay, right. So who says that? And they're like, well, just people say it, but you just hear it. You just hear about it. And I'm like, okay, right. So have you ever actually tried it yourself? Well, no, I haven't tried it. Right. Okay. So you're telling me that shouldn't work, but you've never tried it yourself. So that's the equivalent of like, I don't know, somebody going on a descent on a bike and being like, this is how you do it. This is the best way to do it. Follow me and this will be the fastest. And instead of following them, they then do it a different way. They get to the bottom and they go, that's still not the fastest way. And it's like, well, no, it is the fastest way, because I just beat your time and I went as fast as you. I went faster than you. And then it's like, that's that method. Like in their head, they think, well, somebody else said that wasn't the fastest way. And it's like, well, it is the fastest way, because I'm showing you with my results and the way I live and the way I thrive. And that's how it works. And this is how it works for me. So, you can fire out as many studies as you want, but I'm still here breathing and living and I'm not dead yet.
And I think this is fascinating. But there's this one little thing that's like in the back of my head that I want to ask, because
is it a burger, Niels?
No, it has nothing to do with burgers. No. It's actually, it goes very much in line with what Olly just said. Because I think it's fine when it's like other cyclists, other people, journalists, whoever. But as a, with having the aspiration to becoming a pro rider, because you're on Continental level, so I assume you're technically a pro, but I think the aspiration might be to become a world tour rider, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, technically, I'm not professional yet. People can say the Continental level is professional, but technically, I'm not. So
you're more pro than 99% of all other people in the world. So so for me, this is pro enough. But considering you want to come or go to world tour level and then sign a pro contract there, and did ever something happen there, or do you think in the future something could happen there, that there's like you and another rider with very similar ability, and a team would say, okay, Olly, we really like what you do, but we believe that the diet that you're doing is counterproductive to what you could actually achieve?
Well, I mean, if I'm honest, at this point, I would, unfortunately, no matter what the opportunity was, I would probably just have to walk away.
Yeah.
I couldn't, even at that level, you think, I don't want to be in a team that from the word get-go make me change something so drastic like that, to think that I need to thrive. So yeah, it's kind of like, if any team wants to take me, they're not just taking me just as a rider, they're taking everything else on the side. And there are riders, there's so many more riders now going towards this way of living. They realize that there's benefits and things like that to doing this diet, or not just the way of living. And there's Adam Hansen, he's vegan. He has been for years now. He's competed, I think, in like 20 something back-to-back Grand Tours, and as we know, cycling is one of the hardest sports in the world. If that guy can get through 20 something back-to-back Grand Tours being a pure vegan, I mean, he's an extreme vegan, like as in his diet's like pretty freaking very, very much like veg and fruit. Like he is fully on the grind. And Simon Geschke, he's vegan, and he's if anything this year, he had a breakout year a few years ago. He won a stage of the Tour, but this year he's been flying this year. And I do enjoy going through his likes on Twitter and seeing his likes, and we follow the same kind of animal welfare Twitter feeds as each other, and I do like to see that he's also supporting not just the health side of it, but he's also kind of behind the whole message of like, it's for the animals, which is really nice to see.
Is there like a WhatsApp group? Like that would be so cool, like all vegan cyclists in the WhatsApp
that'd be my dream.
Like, hey, just
that'd be my dream. That'd be like heaven for me.
I just imagine maybe on the back of this podcast there might be something.
We can create one. I won't be in it. That's because they won't let me. But it's interesting. I was going to say, I think in cycling in general, I don't know if you've seen, it's not vegan to do with, but I think it's on Amazon Prime actually. There's the cycling chef. Lady, sorry, I don't recall her name, and I think just the teams are taking more of an interest in what their riders are eating, whereas before, whatever it was, they were kind of just, well, that's what you eat and you get on with it. But I think they're trying to make it more either interesting for the riders, not going down a certain path, but it's just becoming more of a focus. So I would like to think that if a team was looking or was approaching you, that they would be more open than they would have been however many years ago to this, because I think they see your diet, whatever it might be, as important now. And if it's working for you, which it clearly is, if they're going to look at your numbers and your performances, then I'd like to think that they would see that as a benefit, that actually you're really knowledgeable about food, rather than taking on someone who maybe
wasn't so dialed in. I think that's a really good point, because a lot of riders, pro riders, this is no insult to them, but I've come across a fair amount of them now, but they get to a point where they're almost robotic, and they get told, okay, it's a Monday, this is the training you have to do, this is what you have to eat, this is this is what you have to do, you then have to go to the gym, you then have to do this, then you have to then go to the airport, and then somebody will pick you up, you then come to this race, and then you do this, then in the race you do that, blah blah blah. And it's just like almost on a repeat of being just told almost what to do. So these riders, like, no matter what, they're not being told, and they're not being programmed to think outside the box as a cyclist. Maybe in outside life they do think outside the box. But as a cyclist, they don't think like, you know, a different way of training, or a different way of eating, or a different way of doing different things. So I think when people say to me, "Oh, why? You know, if it was so great, why isn't everyone doing it? Why isn't?" And I say to them, "Well, you know, unfortunately." Well, not unfortunately, but they're being told. They're just being told, this is what you do. This is the nutritionist. This is who's going to be, you know. And each nutritionist like ranges from different. You know, one nutritionist could believe one thing and set Team Ineos one diet, and one nutritionist could think that, you know, this is a different thing. So it's all down to the nutritionist, really, not down to what the team thinks best. You know, is what that individual at that moment that they employ think. So you know, and that's when they think. You know, people say to me, "Oh, you know, Team Ineos, they do all, you know, they don't eat many carbs." And I'm like, trust me, Chris Froome, there's no way, like, you know, even for him at stage 18 of the Giro in when was it, 2018, I think, when he just took off and won, he had Swannies and even Dave Brailsford on the side of each climb, handing up bottles and gels up every single climb, making sure that his carbohydrate intake was absolutely topped up to the tank. So, you know, these guys, they like to come across that, you know, that they're doing all this kind of low carb, under fueling stuff, when in reality, to hit those sorts of crazy power numbers that these guys are doing, if you're not using your predominant fuel source of glucose, you're not going to be pushing over 6 watts per kilo for 40 minutes. There's just no way you can do that.
or they're just like full to the brim. It's like ketones, or what is it called? Like, I think when you like completely like
yeah, but even ketones, you know, do, you know, you can use those ketones. But again, the body craves the glucose. That's what it needs to
my body does also all the time.
Well, the body is a temple, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just like the sort of the ethos as well for any diet, really, that you're so tuned into your diet with your training that you know when one's affecting the other. And I think when you become so robotic about it, you're like, right, I eat porridge today and then I go on my ride. But actually, what if I'm not going on my ride? Do I not, like I say, you know, you probably ride every day, but I probably won't have porridge this morning, actually, because I'm doing something different. And how does that make me feel? And did I feel better or did I feel worse? And there's something about really dialing into that I think improves you as an athlete and makes you a more well-rounded athlete than someone who just blindly follows certain things because they think they're right.
Yeah, I think that's actually really true, because for me, I actually, you know, I've tried two sides of diets, really. I've tried the low carb, you know, fasted rides and all that stuff. I've tried it. I've been there. Trust me, I've done it. And it was miserable. Like, I'd get back from a ride, I'd be starving, I'd eat, and then throughout the day, I'd just be on the back foot from the get-go. And you just feel like you're catching up the whole time. Whereas, you know, now, even on rest days, I eat exactly the same amount of porridge. I eat just vast amounts on days I do nothing. And I find that I'm so kind of in tune now, because you're not malnourishing your body with what it needs, that, you know, if you do have 3 days easy, on the third day, if your appetite isn't as hungry, naturally it won't be as hungry, because, you know, your energy expenditure has gone down. You know, your body does adjust. It just goes, you know, okay, I haven't done that much workload today, I'm not that hungry. And you don't need to force yourself to think, I'm not going to eat today, I need to lose weight. It just naturally goes, actually, do you know what, I'm not that hungry, I'll just have half the amount of rice today. Or, like, you know, you're eating, you get to a point, you're like, I'm done, I'm full, and then you move on. You know, instead of thinking in the back of your head, oh, you know, I can't eat this, can't eat that, you know, it's an easy day. But yeah, I definitely think that, you know, you are so much more in tune with your body through that, for sure.
It's really, really cool. Like, it's so much I learned today. Like, I didn't well, not that I didn't expect it, but
you just got to carb up, Niels. That's what you do.
Definitely.
Just
definitely.
don't drink the sugar-free drinks, you know, scrap those. Drink the full sugar. You need your brain. Just think, you know, you're the 25% of your body. The brain uses 25% of all calories into your body. So if you eat a meal of 1,000 calories, your brain will intake purely 25% of that straight away before it even goes to any other muscle or anything else. So, you know, you got to fuel the brain.
That sounds so good. I will do that. Finally, I don't need any excuses anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Olly,
for
that's
my
fantastic. It's so good. Olly, thank you so much for that. It's really so insightful. I really enjoyed that. There's a couple of things that I just wanted to ask in general, because we never wanted to have any episode really dedicated to Corona or COVID-19, but I was just wondering, while we have you on the line, this season was obviously very challenging. You mentioned that you were racing in Saudi Arabia earlier this year.
Yeah.
There were not many races left, I guess. What did you do to compensate that? Did you do anything differently than what you would have done usually to compensate the not happening road races?
Yeah, I think for me, so obviously we were at Saudi in February, and in February it was set out to be a fairly normal time. Got back from Saudi Arabia, the season was kicking off, went to Belgium, did a race in Holland. Unfortunately crashed in Holland, DNF there, but and everything was set up to be really good, and then obviously suddenly everything kind of changed, and went back to the UK, and actually when I got back I just thought this is going to be such a good opportunity to tune and really work on weaknesses here, and just work on things. And a lot of habits that riders have is just almost trying to strengthen their strengths instead of strengthen their weaknesses. And I think it's almost like a safety net for riders to think I'm good at sprinting, so I'm just gonna do sprints all the time, or I'm just good at climbing and that's all I'm gonna do. Whereas a weakness of mine is threshold efforts, longer efforts. So yeah, I just thought, right, now's a good time. So I have a Wahoo kicker. I got that in November. Just got into Zwift, and started racing more and more during lockdown on Zwift, and just literally got to a point where I was racing 3 times a week, and she was just loving it. It brought that complete competitive edge back into what I needed, kept me really focused. You may
love it, but I do twice a week, and
oh really?
I am done.
Yeah. But don't you find that it keeps, I don't know, during lockdown it just keeps that routine of pre-race.
Yeah, we've talked about it previously. Actually, you get kind of the same feeling almost. I don't know if you get this.
Oh no, I get
different riding with teammates, but actually,
I'm
prepping for that race apart from the travel and the logistics side.
Yeah,
as if I'm going to do a normal race,
Yeah, absolutely.
And you get the chat afterwards, what happened, and it's not quite so tactical. It might be at your end of the field, but at mine, I'm just hanging on for dear life, really.
No, it's the same. It's the same.
I do appreciate that, and I think
you get those nerves, don't you? Those, when it's 10 seconds
on you.
10 seconds to go in the lobby, and you're like, oh, here we go, and then 5 seconds you start clicking up.
Powering up,
you start firing the numbers up, and you get that you almost get that those chemicals in your brain that just make you feel good about racing, and that competitive, you almost get that fix, don't you?
Even though you've gone absolutely nowhere.
Exactly. But that's kind of how I handled lockdown, doing a lot of volume, so lots of long rides. So I'd do 3 hours, 4 hours in the morning, and then have a big lunch, kind of have a nap, and then in the evening do a Zwift race. That kind of kept the volume up, but also kept the intensity in there. And that's kind of what I've adopted through this winter as well. So I was in Belgium from July when travel restrictions were eased, and just spent a lot of time training there because I love it there. It's I consider it my home. Did a lot of really savage group rides there, just enjoyed my time there. Came back, and actually Anna was meant to be racing up until beginning of November, and I didn't want to be take my end of season break 3 weeks before she does, and then she gets home, and then I'm like, I've still got to go out and do 4 hours a day whilst she's not riding. So I took the plunge and was like, screw it. I've got no races and I haven't raced since February, but I'll just keep training and match up my off season with hers. So we did that. And luckily the Zwift Academy came along. And I was like, you know what? I'll just give it a crack. I've got this form that I've had through just training all year. I may as well put it to use. So did all those workouts, did all the races and stuff, and then had I had a week and a half break, and me and Anna went down to Cornwall before this lockdown and had a good time down there. And managed to complete the Zwift Academy, which was really good, but also like actually savage.
It's hard. I'm very much assuming that this is a bit harsh that Niels hasn't done it. Niels?
Yeah.
No. Done it. I haven't done that much because I actually couldn't fit it in with all the other racing as well, because we've got like WTRL, ZRL.
Yeah, there's so many, aren't there?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I've done about 3 workouts.
Okay.
I particularally like the ones with the long rest.
Okay. The sprint profiling one.
The sprint profiling, yeah. You should do this one, Niels, actually. You just get a lot of rest, basically.
Yeah, you get loads of rest.
And I've done all the group rides. I didn't actually do any group racing at all, so I did not qualify, but it sounds like, Ollie, you did all of them.
I did.
So you completed all the group ride or race, whatever you want to do, plus the workouts.
Yeah, that's it. So it's like segment rides as well. So it's 2 races, 2 segment rides. And in those segment rides, you have to do like, if you want to go for the pro contract, you have to do, one of the segments is the Innsbruck KOM, which is, I think it's like just a full gas, 6-7K full gas up there. And then the other one is hilly KOM, which is like a 1 kilometer climb on Watopia.
Yes.
Full gas, which is like a minute and a half full gas up this climb.
It might be a minute and a half. It took me, it was 2.5 minutes for me, I think.
Oh yeah, but you know, whatever.
I had to do it the other day for a sort of 3 sisters test. So it took me a bit longer than you.
Yeah, well that's it. So it's just those segment rides. But Zwift's it's a really good it's a great platform, and I've managed to drag Anna into it a bit more. She's seen actually, she's off to she's doing the Worlds on the 9th. So I saw that.
I saw it today. Musette Cafe, they posted something about her. I didn't even know the Worlds were on in virtual racing. So
they booted off the tour that I was on. This is how unpro I am. That's got moved to January because the Worlds are coming in on the 9th. I'm quite relieved actually. I need longer.
So cool. Yeah. And Olly, for yourself, so like at the end of the Zwift Academy, there's like the outlook for potentially a pro contract. Which team would it be with? Do you know that, or?
Yeah, it's Alpecin Phoenix. It's Matthew Van der Poel's team.
Oh yeah, no, nice.
Yeah, so it would be like very much into the deep end.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool.
Oh wow!
However you pursue there, I wish you all the best. I cross my fingers. It will be.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good to see how it goes.
We can fan view if you we can fan view you, Niels. I can tell you how to do that, Niels.
Yeah, please do that. Like, can we share this with our listeners as well? That maybe everybody can fan view.
Oh, that'd be nice.
It's fantastic. I have no idea what that even is, but it doesn't matter. I will find out. No, that's really cool. Olly, honestly, thank you so much. It was fantastic. There was definitely one of the recordings of the category I really enjoyed a lot. That was so cool. I just like if our listeners want to follow you and what you're up to, or want to reach out or want to get in touch, like what's the best way of doing that?
I'd say probably just Instagram. Like my messages are always open. Like I love seeing people message and asking questions about kind of veganism, or if they have any questions like that. I'm always open ears and happy to help. But yeah, my Instagram, I think my Instagram is just Olly Moors. It's literally just my name.
With double O, not a W.
Yeah,
double singer.
It's OLLY and OORS.
Because the singer is actually the guy I reached out first. I was like, "Hey,
shit, really?
You want to come to the show?"
Yeah, and then he went for second best, which was me.
Then he said like, "I don't cycle," so I was like, "Oh, sorry, no, I don't want to."
We can't have you.
No, that's really cool. And any like, is there anyone out there that you like want to send like special like?
I'd say probably my coach.
Is it still the same? Still the same that you mentioned before? Ellen?
Yeah. It's still the same coach. So it's Alan Denman, Project 51. He's looked after me since I was 13, 14. And I wouldn't really be kind of still racing without him. Really, he's been such a good role model and an influence for me. So yeah, probably Alan. Really, he's a good guy. So yeah, probably him, and obviously the team, my team. So yeah.
So follow Ribble Weldtite.
Ribble Weldtite Pro Cycling.
Well, we spoke like to the audience before this call. We actually I was trying to find out how to pronounce the second part of the team. So it's Ribble Weldtite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's go with this one. So follow them on Instagram. Give them some love. And if you guys want to support the podcast in one way or the other, please leave a review on Apple iTunes or follow us. If you want to reach out to us, send us an email to podcast@veloccino.com or to Gemma or Niels @veloccino.com if you want to send us a message directly. And that's basically it for today. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. Thanks to Gemma for doing this with me today. Thanks to Olly for being on the show. It was a pleasure. I really, really enjoyed that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Olly.
Yeah, no, that was really, really enjoyable. Thanks for having me, guys.
So for all your listeners, leaves us with nothing else but going out, enjoy your ride, and remember, the best stories have not yet been written.